Hey guys, welcome back to another video in my healing series. Today we'll be covering the Restoration Shaman. We'll look at what changes we've seen and how those changes affect the way we heal. As always, I'll start with a brief overview. The Resto Shaman is an incredibly strong raid healer, thanks to our numerous powerful cooldowns and consistent healing throughput. We have a ton of unique utility abilities we bring to the table as well. The Shaman is strongest in a group setting where our party members can all be stacked up, or in a raid environment where there are other healers to help fill in some of our weaknesses. Moving on to those weaknesses then. The Shaman has great AoE healing only when your group is stacked up. As soon as people start spreading out though, our AoE healing goes right out the window. We also struggle with being able to heal while moving, since all of our baseline healing spells are hard cast abilities. We have very few ways to help mitigate this. The final weakness of the Shaman is its lack of meaningful defensive cooldowns, specifically any external cooldowns to give to other party members like a tank. This is the primary issue for Shamans in Mythic Plus. And with that overview out of the way, let's jump into our basic toolkit, starting with our healing rotation. Earth Shield used to be a talent for us and is now baseline. This will grant the party member we place it on some passive healing every few seconds when they take damage, and will also increase our healing on that target by 20%, so we'll want to keep this active on our tank. Riptide is our only instant cast healing spell, and it's a healing over time effect. We'll want to also keep this active on our tank and other party members that are taking damage. It has a very short 6-second cooldown, so we'll want to use this ability every time it's up, since, again, it's our only instant cast heal. Next, Water Shield is a new baseline ability we have coming in Shadowlands. This will restore a small amount of mana every 5 seconds and every time we're hit by a melee attack. We should keep this active on ourselves for the extra passive mana regen. Healing Stream Totem is something I would normally cover in cooldowns, but as it's such a key part of our rotation, I decided to include it here. Healing Stream Totem is simply a totem we plop down on the ground every 30 seconds, and it will heal an injured party member every 1.5 seconds for 15 seconds. The passive healing this provides really does add up, and we'll want to use this off cooldown anytime our group is in combat. Healing Rain. This is similar in function to the Druid's Efflorescence, in that we simply place this on the ground wherever the largest clump of party members are. This will heal 6 party members for a moderate amount over 10 seconds and has a 10-second cooldown, so again, we'll want to keep this up anytime we're in combat. Moving on now, Chain Heal is our only castable AoE healing spell. This will hit our first target with a large heal, and will then bounce to 3 other nearby party members. It will heal for 30% less for every additional jump that it makes, meaning that by the time it hits that 4th party member, the heal will be fairly small. So we'll want to make sure we choose the lowest health party member for the initial cast. Finally, Healing Wave and Healing Surge are our main single target healing options. For a more efficient but slower heal, we can use Healing Wave. If we need a faster heal, we'll use Healing Surge. So to summarize our healing rotation, we'll keep Riptide and Earth Shield up on our tank at all times. We'll throw Riptides out on party members as they start taking damage, and we'll keep Healing Rain down anytime our group is in combat. Then we can spot heal our party members with either Healing Wave or Healing Surge. If many people in our group take damage and they're relatively close to each other, we use Chain Heal. We'll use our Healing Stream Totem again off cooldown to just help out with some spot healing. Moving on then to some of our damage abilities. Flame Shock is an instant cast damage over time we have on a short 6-second cooldown. We'll want to keep this up as much as possible for some added damage and for some instant cast Lava Surge procs that we get from a passive. Lava Surge, Lightning Bolt, and Chain Lightning are all hard-casted damage spells that we can use anytime we're in a low damage situation. Lava Surge is the hardest hitting single target ability, with Lightning Bolt being a less hard hitting single target ability. Chain Lightning is great in AoE situations, but again, these are pretty long casts, so we really only want to be casting these when our group is safe and healthy. With our basic rotation finished, we'll move right on to cooldowns, of which the Shaman has a tremendous amount, so I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to warn you guys now that I'm moving through these fairly quickly because there's so many of them. Starting with healing cooldowns. Spirit Link Totem is what we're arguably best known for. This will reduce all damage taken by 10% for all members inside the totem effect. Additionally, this is the powerful part, every 1 second for 6 seconds, the health of all people inside the totem effect is redistributed, so all players are the same HP. This should be used for large group-wide damage mechanics, and will prevent one-shots. This is on a 3-minute cooldown. Next up, Healing Tide Totem, which is also on a 3-minute cooldown, will heal all party and raid members within 40 yards every 2 seconds for a very decent amount, and it lasts for 12 seconds. We ideally want to combine the use of Healing Tide Totem with our Spirit Link Totem. Since Spirit Link is redistributing the health of members as a large damage mechanic is coming in, we can then drop our Healing Tide Totem to bring everyone's health back up to a stable level. Moving on to our utility cooldowns. We have Heroism, or Bloodlust. This will increase the haste of all party and raid members by 30% for 40 seconds, which is a very powerful effect. We are the only healer in the game with this ability. Next up is Spirit Walker's Grace. This will allow us to cast while moving, which is something we desperately need. The effect will last for 15 seconds on a fairly short 2-minute cooldown. We will want to use this off cooldown every chance we get. Next is Monotide Totem, which is a new ability we have in Shadowlands. This will grant 100% mana regeneration to all party and raid members within 10 yards for 8 seconds. This is on a 3-minute cooldown as well. We'll want to use this in a raid in some sort of organized fashion, where we can get all of the healers together to stack right on top of the shaman, since again, this is only a 10-yard radius, which is just not that large. Next up, we have an ability called Purge. This will dispel beneficial magic effects from an enemy. There aren't a lot of use cases for this in PvE, it is primarily used in PvP, however, every once in a while, you'll find some sneaky little mob somewhere in the game that you can use Purge on, and it is incredibly powerful when you find such a thing. Moving on then to Purify Spirit, which of course is our baseline Dispel effect. This will remove all magic and curses from an ally every 8 seconds. Next we have Wind Shear, which is a baseline interrupt, shockingly enough. This is on a very short 12-second cooldown, and we are the only healer in the game with a baseline interrupt, so you guys know how I feel about these things, please use your stinking interrupt. Earth Elemental is an interesting cooldown we have. We can summon this giant rock guy out with a ton of health and armor. He lasts for 1 minute, and will taunt our target if we are not playing with a tank, or the tank in our party is dead. If we are playing with a tank, then he won't taunt the target and will instead just do damage, so we can use this as a pseudo DPS cooldown. This is on a 5-minute cooldown and lasts for 1 minute. Capacitor Totem is our baseline AoE stun on a 1-minute cooldown. Reincarnation is a passive we have that is functionally a cooldown. This will allow us to resurrect ourselves in combat every 30 minutes. It's essentially a B-res, but only for ourselves. There are actually a number of other utility cooldown spells that I could go over here, like our baseline polymorph effect and hex and on and on. There are so many, but this is already going to be a long video, so let's move on to our final cooldown, which is Astral Shift. This is our only defensive cooldown. This will reduce all damage we take by 40% for 12 seconds on a reasonable 1.5 minute cooldown. And that, finally, wraps up our many cooldowns. Now it's time to jump into our talents. Starting with row 15 then, we're always going to take Unleash Life for a much needed instant cast healing spell. This will heal for a decent amount and provide a 35% increase to our next direct heal. For row 25, we're almost always going to take Echo of the Elements, again for a very similar reason. This will give 2 charges to Riptide and Healing Stream Totem, which provides us with those additional options that we really need for healing on the move. For row 30, Spirit Wolf is great. As our only mobility option, we're naturally in our wolf form a lot anyways, so the bonus move speed is great, and the 20% damage reduction is actually quite strong if you know damage is coming and can get in wolf form ahead of time. For row 35, we'll take Earthen Wall Totem for a small group damage reduction every 1 minute. Alternatively, we can take Ancestral Protection Totem for huge raid or Mythic Plus mechanics that might be coming to allow for battle res. For row 40, we'll almost always take Windrush Totem for raids, as the movement speed that it provides to our party members is very nice. We can take Graceful Spirit in higher Mythic Plus or Arena content to reduce the cooldown of our Spirit Walker's Grace. This is what I always take because that mobility, man, it kills me. Moving on now to our level 45 talents. We're going to take Cloudburst Totem almost no matter what, since it's another passive healing source, but also a very powerful AoE healing effect. This essentially functions as something like a bucket that stores all of the healing that you do while Cloudburst Totem is out, and then once it kind of dissipates or whatever, it releases all of that healing into a massive AoE heal kind of burst effect on your party. It's quite strong. For row 50 then, High Tide is going to be a go-to for us as a passive, consistent buff to chain heal. We can consider Ascendance for a large additional raid cooldown if needed, or for Arena. And that wraps up our talents. We'll now talk about which Shadowlands legendary effects are looking strongest for us. So, first up is Jonat's Natural Focus. This will cause our Healing Wave and Healing Surge to buff our next chain heal by 10%, and this will stack up to 5 times. This is pretty great for large AoE heals if we know that we're going to need them, and again can plan in advance and have those stacks ready. Primal Tidal Core will cause every 4 Riptides we cast to cast another Riptide on an additional friendly target. This is very decent for group content that requires a lot of mobility, as again, being able to heal on the move is one of our weaknesses. Next up, Spirit Walker's Tidal Totem will allow us to have 100% reduced cast time and mana cost on Healing Wave and Chain Heal for 10 seconds after we use our Mana Tide Totem. This would be best used in raids, of course, where we're going to be using Mana Tide Totem the most anyways. For our final legendary effect to consider, and my personal favorite, we have Chains of Devastation, which is surprisingly a neutral legendary. This effect says, casting Chain Heal makes your next Chain Lightning an instant cast, and casting Chain Lightning makes your next Chain Heal instant cast. I think you guys know how I feel about instant cast spells by now. These can be looped almost infinitely, making for some super fun play in non-dangerous AoE group content, and I do want to specify here that this is not the strongest legendary effect by any means, but it is very, very fun to play with. And that wraps up our legendary effects, and brings us to the end of this guide for the Resto Shaman. Let me know in the comments below which class or spec you'd like me to cover next. Drop me a like and a sub if you like my content, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!